Have you ever noticed that when you give a rather boring and uninteresting character his own episode, it just might turn out to be his best? Well, that's what Clyde found out in the episode I'm going to talk about today. So join me as I, SteamTeamRedubUK, CC Trainor-Ling, bring you another retro review from past seasons of The Loud House. Cue the intro! Today's episode is Baby Steps. In this episode, Clyde thinks he's going to be a big brother, but the training Lincoln puts him through with his younger sisters leaves him feeling very overwhelmed. For years, I had never really cared for this episode the same way other fans did, but I'm happy to say that as of late, I've discovered a newfound respect for it. I can see why so many people like this episode. Clyde interacting with Lincoln's younger sisters had similar vibes to the Season 1 episode Overnight Success. It's kind of fulfilling from a character perspective because it's honestly the closest Clyde will ever get to having or being around siblings of his own. Speaking of being around siblings, Clyde trying to follow in Lincoln's footsteps during his initial Big Brother training was handled very well, especially during the scene where all 5 sisters were fighting and overwhelming Clyde with their problems at the same time. You really feel bad for Clyde by that moment, and you can't blame him for wanting to give up. Again, he's an only child, so naturally he'd have some difficulty trying to do what his best friend, an expert with years of Big Brother experience, does on a daily basis. It's understandable why he felt that kind of responsibility was becoming too much for him and assumed he had no confidence in being a big brother himself. That's when Lincoln needed to rebuild Clyde's spirit by having his younger sisters go to him one by one when they needed his help with something. Of course, Clyde got very furious when he found out Lincoln had actually paid his sisters to act helpless, but those little moments like Clyde reading to Lily and Lola giving him a hug were still adorable nonetheless. The biggest confidence boost Clyde needed came from the one sister who wasn't even in on Lincoln's plan. Clyde rescued Lana when she legitimately got stuck in a tree, and she was genuinely grateful for what he did. That entire scene right there was the top highlight moment in my book. However, it turned out Clyde's dads were not preparing for a new baby, despite the hints Clyde had picked up on earlier in the plot. They were actually preparing for their new cat, Nefertiti. By the way, I always found it interesting how the McBrides like to adopt cats named after ancient Egyptian queens. First there was Cleopatra, and now there's Nefertiti. So yeah, Clyde didn't become the big brother like he had assumed, but at least he could put Lincoln's big brother training to good use when taking care of the cats, so he still gets a big win by the end. Overall, this episode was simply fantastic. The story and its execution came off as both very genuine and relatable without going too crazy, and Clyde had some great moments with Lincoln's younger sisters as he learned how to be a big brother. It's not so easy when you're an only child, and it may seem scary in the beginning, but once you get the hang of it, you won't feel so overwhelmed, and the rest will come naturally. The younger sisters played their roles very well without overplaying their collective hands, and I really liked how it was focused on just them instead of the writers trying to shoehorn any of the older sisters into the plot so as to present Clyde with younger brother training, if that makes any sense. I mean, yeah, technically they had one older sister, Lori, show up, and it wasn't all that necessary for her to be there, but this didn't hurt the episode by any means. She was probably added into the episode just so they could do that nosebleed thing Clyde always does, so I'm willing to look past that. In short, this episode was good for the development of Clyde's character, and as of this recording, I can say with confidence this was his best episode where he's the main star. I know it's technically a Clink and McCloud episode with him sharing the lead with his best friend, but in terms of individual character growth, this was more Clyde's story than Lincoln's. So you might as well ignore my claims of Brave the Last Dance and Don't Ask Cargo as Clyde's #1 starring roles, although I still stand by the notion that his character was handled very well in each of those. With the way this second season episode played out compared to the episodes from seasons 4 and 6, you'll understand why I've changed my stance, and this review makes that very clear. With that said, I give Baby Steps a 9.3 out of 10. Well folks, that concludes my review of Baby Steps. So I gotta ask, what did you guys think of this episode? Sound off in the comments below, and be sure to click that subscribe button for more Loud House related content. That's going to do it for me. I'll catch you guys for the next video, but until then, this is SteamTeamRedubUK, CC Trainor-Ling, signing off. Peace out, home slices.